The gentle hum of conversation and the soft rustle of pages filled the quiet nook, a cozy bookstore and cafe in the historic district of Savannah. Elara Vance tucked a stray strand of her auburn hair behind her ear and smiled at a young couple admiring a display of classic novels. "That's a beautiful edition," she said, approaching them. "The press only does a limited run each year with hand-marbled end papers." The young man looked at Elara with interest. "Have you actually been to the press?" "Not yet, unfortunately," Elara replied, her smile unwavering. "The publisher's representative was at a literary festival last fall, though. She brought samples of the paper and showed us how the marbling is done. It's truly an art form." This was Elara's monthly author's evening, held on the first Thursday of every month. The turnout wasn't huge, maybe 20 people, but it was exactly the intimate, engaged atmosphere she cherished. Plush armchairs and small tables with pots of tea and slices of homemade lemon cake were scattered between the towering shelves of carefully selected titles. Elara scanned the room. 7 years ago, when she first signed the lease, the space was a dusty, forgotten stationery shop with poor lighting and peeling floral wallpaper. She had personally overseen the installation of the custom oak bookshelves and the warm track lighting that now gently illuminated the restored brickwork. The bookstore had become her haven, her creation, and her greatest pride. "Elara, this was wonderful," said Arthur, a retired history teacher and one of her most loyal patrons. "That local author you found, her perspective on Southern Gothic literature is fascinating." "Thank you," she nodded. "I've been trying to champion more regional voices. The big chains often overlook them." The Quiet Nook wasn't a giant retailer, but it had a dedicated community of readers who appreciated Elara's curated selection and her passion for the written word. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw her phone on the counter light up. A new text message had arrived. Elara knew her husband wouldn't be making an appearance tonight, just as he'd missed every one of her events for the past 4 months. The message was brief, wrapped up with a client, "Don't wait up." She flipped the phone face down. 7 years ago, when they first met, she could never have imagined their relationship would deteriorate into this strained coexistence. Her mind drifted back to their first encounter at a photography exhibition. Julian Thorne was standing beside his most prominent piece, a striking black and white composition of an abandoned theater that he claimed explored the theme of forgotten dreams. Elara had been dragged along by a cousin and had only a passing interest in photography, but she found herself captivated, less by the image itself and more by the artist's intensity. "You've been staring at that print for 10 minutes, a voice said, suddenly beside her. "You either see the story in the silence, or you're just counting the dust motes." There was no arrogance in his tone, only a genuine, self-deprecating curiosity. He was 6 years her senior, and he spoke with a passionate fire that lit up his green eyes. His hands were expressive, constantly shaping the air as he explained his artistic philosophy. When Elara admitted she knew little about fine art photography, he laughed. "Refreshing honesty," he said. "Most people here just pretend to see the meaning while they're really calculating the potential resale value." A week after they met, he invited her to his darkroom, a converted garage space filled with the sharp scent of chemicals and the ghostly glow of red safe lights. Contact sheets, test prints, and negatives were pinned to drawing lines. The air crackled with a raw creative energy. He wanted to capture truth, he told her, showing her his work. Not just take pretty pictures. Something that makes people feel the weight of a moment, the echo of a life. Julian never spoke in cliches. He always found an unexpected angle, a unique way of seeing the mundane. He pulled her into his world where the ordinary became profound, and beauty was found in decay and shadow. He said, "I don't take postcard shots for tourists. The market wants safe, decorative images, but that's not art. Art should ask difficult questions." Alara had believed in his talent and his sincerity. She didn't know that it wouldn't be long before that passionate artist with the fiery eyes was all but extinguished. She didn't know that 3 years into their marriage, Julian would be sprawled on the couch, endlessly scrolling through art forums, complaining about the commercialism of the gallery scene and the short-sightedness of curators. The author's evening was winding down. Alara said her goodbyes to the last few guests and began clearing the teacups. It was nearly 11:30 when she got home. Julian was out, but evidence of his presence was everywhere. A sketchbook left open on the coffee table, a half-eaten bagel on the kitchen counter, a sweater draped over a chair. Alara sank wearily onto the sofa. Their home, a charming two-story townhouse in the Victorian district, had once been their shared project. Now it felt increasingly like Julian's storage unit. His things were everywhere, but he was rarely present. She remembered a year and a half ago when Julian had been electrified by a new project talking about a potential show in Charleston. But the show never materialized. The gallery owner who had expressed interest suddenly stopped returning his calls, and Julian sank into a creative paralysis from which he never emerged. At first, Alara was sympathetic, offering support and suggestions. But as months turned into a year, her patience wore thin, especially when she realized Julian had stopped even picking up his camera. He spoke of gestation periods and reevaluating his aesthetic, but in reality, he spent most of his time online critiquing the work of successful peers and lamenting his own lack of recognition. The front door clicked open just after 1 a.m. Julian walked in, smelling of stale coffee and the night air. "How did the meeting with the client go?" Alara asked, keeping her voice level. "He canceled," Julian replied, tossing his jacket on the newel post. "Sent a text last minute, some family emergency, supposedly." "I'm sorry," Alara said, though I doubted the client ever existed. "I bet you are," he said curtly. "It suits you just fine for me to stay a failure." Alara sighed. These arguments had become routine. "Don't be ridiculous, Julian. I've always supported your work." "Right. You have," he smirked. "You just never let me forget who pays the mortgage." "I never said that." "Not in those words," he shot back, opening the fridge and pulling out a carton of orange juice. "But you constantly talk about how hard you work at the store, how much time you invest, because it's true. I work hard, and I do it willingly. Of course, you're the successful entrepreneur, and I'm nothing. Stop with the self-pity. It's not helping." "Not helping," he gave a strained laugh. "You even talk like a business coach. You measure everything in terms of productivity." Alara felt her irritation rising. "How should I talk, Julian? Should I just enable your complaining? You haven't taken a serious photograph in over a year. You're not even trying." "Oh, is that so?" he challenged her, meeting her gaze. "Do you have any idea what it's like to be an artist? Creativity doesn't run on a schedule. It's not your little book club that you can plan and organize. But creativity requires action," Alara countered. "You've just given up." "Easy for you to say," Julian retorted. "Your aunt gave you the seed money for your store." That was a sore point. Alara's aunt had indeed loaned her the initial capital, but she had repaid every penny within 3 years with relentless work and a second job. "I paid my aunt back every cent, with interest," she said, her voice trembling. "And you know it. And the lease on your darkroom space, by the way, I've been covering that out of my pocket for the last 2 years, too." "There it is." Julian raised a finger triumphantly. "You finally said it, out of your pocket. It always comes down to money." "No, it's about your attitude," she fired back. "I wouldn't mind the financial support if I saw you making any effort, but you sit around criticizing everyone else and waiting for a lucky break to fall into your lap." Julian's face darkened. "You don't understand. The art world is a closed shop. If you don't know the right people, if you don't play their games, you don't stand a chance. But there are other photographers who..." "Who what?" he interrupted. The ones who shoot boring wedding photos? Or the ones whoring themselves out for corporate advertising, selling their souls for a paycheck? There are other paths, Alara insisted. You could teach a class, lead workshops. Oh, now you're an art career consultant. Maybe you should just tell me to get a job at a copy shop. Alara closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. These arguments repeated with a depressing sameness. Julian skillfully twisted every conversation into an attack on his character, manipulating her guilt. I don't want to fight, she said finally. We just can't go on like this. We, he sneered. Isn't it always about what you can accept? You want a husband you can show off to your bookish friends? Oh, my husband is a famous photographer. You don't actually care about the art. You don't even understand what I do. That's not fair.